Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we're going to get a little dirty, and I actually mean that literally because as you can see we're going to be cleaning some really nasty swords. You can see this model 1845/55 is covered in rust, deposits and all kinds of garbage that probably accumulated over decades. And well, this is the worst. These aren't much better. These two GLaves are slightly more presentable, but not really. They also are quite nasty. So what we're going to do today is simply rub them with some mineral oil and see what kind of dirt and rust we can take off with a very, very non-invasive and accessible to everyone process. I know a lot of YouTubers already made videos like these, documenting different levels of restoration and different levels of complexity. And actually, it just happens that I Post Swords came out with an amazing video just last week, no, actually this week, in which he documents a new process that can restore through chelation. It can remove oxidation layers, and it can remove all kinds of damage and preserve, for example, etchings or decorations on blades. So if you haven't seen that video, absolutely, you should check it out. But what we're going to be looking at today is an easier process. It's something that's accessible literally to everyone. So it's something that you should do on your swords, not only if they're in these conditions, but just to keep them clean. And the reason why I thought I'd make a video, even though others, as I mentioned, already exist, is because I wanted to show what kind of results you can achieve on a blade in these conditions. These for me are some of the most interesting blades or swords because I really kind of like the idea of finding out what's under layers of neglect and decades, perhaps a century of neglect. Most of the swords in the lower end of the collecting spectrum are going to be swords like these. So especially when you're buying from non-specialized auction houses, or maybe you find something at a flea market or in a second-hand store, you'll probably be finding things kind of in this range of condition, if not worse. This is because a lot of these swords maybe are kept in the proverbial barn or attic or cellar for decades. Generations go by without really even remembering it exists, and it just decays over time. And I think, well, there's something adventurous about seeing what's underneath, but I think it's also really fun, and it gives me a lot of satisfaction to restore something that is to most people looks like a piece of garbage, and restore it into something that is, even if a low end, but still a collectible and an antique with dignity. So enough talking, I'll set everything up and then we'll start cleaning. So we'll start by looking at the details of the damage, what we're working with, and we won't go through the details of the sword, like we won't look into specs or anything because we'll keep that for another video. This is only for cleaning. But as you can see, there is just a massive amount of red rust. Red rust means it's active, so it's currently actively corroding the blade, which makes this cleaning a very urgent and necessary thing to do. So you can see it's really bad towards the tip, and it gets worse on this side. So when rust is black, you could technically get away with leaving it on the blade. It's more of an aesthetic choice at that point as a collector, but it's not damaging the blade, it's not active. But this needs to be addressed very quickly. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So what we're going to be using for this process, for this cleaning, is Ballistol in this case. It's a mineral oil. A lot of different mineral oils will do, as long as they don't have any additives, like chemical additives that can damage the blade. I often use a soft or not too hard or medium bristle toothbrush to kind of, sometimes there are some hard to get to areas, so that can be useful. And then a variety of different microfiber cloths and a sponge for maybe areas that are a little more damaged or need a little more serious work. I sometimes use the more abrasive side here too, but I try not to. And Yeah, different people use different things, but for just cleaning, this is usually enough. So I just had a very small accident and dropped a whole bunch of Ballistol. So pro tip, make sure you put the cap back on the bottle when you're not using it, even just for a few seconds. So I actually decided to go for the sponge because the simply using the cloth was not really working on this section of the blade. So you'll see all the dirt that's coming off, all this reddish brown rust. And you can actually feel it. You feel the blade slowly, you feel the rust coming off, and the sponge moves more smoothly. So not overly, I'm not putting too much pressure on the sponge, I'm just kind of letting the oil work together with the friction, but I'm not kind of, yeah, I'm not trying to grind it or anything. And of course, depending on the blade you're working on, you might need to be a little more aggressive with it, or very much more delicate. I would say this is probably as aggressive as I would want to be with an antique. You can see all of the rust is starting to come off. That's a very good sign, especially towards the tip. It's kind of becoming this ugly paste. Go by this one over the spine too. And another thing I forgot to mention is you probably are going to want to have a bunch of paper or old clothes or cloth or something to clean everything up, because it will get dirty. So, you know what? I've been at this for now just a couple of minutes. So I think what we're going to do is give it a quick wipe down, and we'll see if we can see any positive results. So you can see the dirt, the amount of dirt and grime coming off. And if we look at the blade now, you will see that most of the active rust is actually already gone. There's still some work to do, but let's say this is literally not even 5 minutes of work. Let me focus, sorry. There we go. Okay, so with not even 5 minutes of work, as I was mentioning, there's going to be a bit more work needed in the tip, but I think it's already quite an improvement on what we had going into this. So I'll take a break from filming and focus on the cleaning, and then we'll come back. So where did 10 more minutes of rubbing action lead us to? Well, I think you can probably agree there's been a massive change. Still have to wipe some dirt off, but the blade is, well, not perfect. You can finally see the steel again, the rust is gone, and if at the feel, it's really now smooth. There are a little bit still of, you can slightly feel, especially here towards the edge, towards the tip, you can feel a little bit of concretions are left. You can even see this area here still has some deposits, but honestly, this might as well just stay, because this is not going to damage the blade further. This is now inactive. So, well, what do you think? Okay, we'll now look at the GLaves from closer up. We'll start with this one. So, This side of the blade is actually not that bad, but there still is active rust. So again, this is something that urgently needs to come off. But it's not terrible, at least. But as soon as we turn it around, you'll see that this side instead is rather covered in rust. So definitely needs some work. And then we'll look at the other one. We have, again, one side is okay-ish. I mean, not really okay, but not in the most terrible conditions. And as we turn it around, we see one other side is covered in rust. So I'll get to cleaning these, and then we'll check out the results. I won't follow through with the process because in the previous video it was just a giant mess. So we'll just see the before and after. So about 15 minutes later, and the GLaves, as maybe you can already see, are looking clean-ish. You can still see, obviously, there's a bunch of stains and dark spots. Technically, it would be possible to keep working on them and keep polishing, but that raises a bit of an ethical issue, because what we're trying to do here is to make sure no further damage happens to these swords, not necessarily try to restore them to brand new condition. So let's start looking at them. This is the side that was in better condition. So as you can see, it's still quite nice. There's no more trace of red rust. The fullers are now beautifully visible. And overall, it has a very nice shine to it. If we turn it over and we look at the side that was in a little worse for wear, we'll see that it still has a bunch of dark spots, some slight pitting, but I have to say, to the feel, this is not bad at all. It's quite smooth. I thought it would be way more damaged. And as we move down the blade, we can actually see quite a beautiful shine there. I really like this configuration with these three fullers. I find it very, very appealing. So there we go. This is one. And we'll check out the other. So again, this is the side of the blade that was in better shape. So we can see this nice central ridge. And just a very lovely shine. Unfortunately, none of these swords so far revealed any secrets. There were no inscriptions. I didn't find anything on them, but that's okay. And here we see again the worse condition side of the blade. Overall, I think quite lovely. So there we go. And actually, while we're at it, we'll just take a look at all three of them in their cleaned state. Just a really quick look. There we go, one. Two. And the third. I'm very, very happy. And that was it. About half an hour of mild labor to shift three swords from hunks of rust to back to being collectibles and proper antiques with their own dignity. I think the results are great, actually. I'm very, very happy. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video. But most of all, I hope that it helped you see how easy it is to properly clean them, and it inspires you to ensure you're preserving your swords in the best way possible. One other thing to note before closing the video is that while these processes may seem super easy in the sense that, and they are, but they're not copy-paste processes. And by that I mean each sword you should approach with the intensity of work and the right work for that specific sword. Some may need you to polish and work on them for an hour or more, or days, for example, and some might just need a quick wiping with a bit of oil. Obviously, if you happen to find engravings or etchings, make sure you dial down the intensity of your work to preserve that kind of detail. And the same goes for other details, like if you have leather washers remaining down on the ricasso, make sure you don't damage those while trying to clean your sword. With that being said, I hope you have a great time collecting, and I'll see you in the next video.